Chapter 5 of Tanya the Evil. We start off with a recap of what's happened so far. A salaryman working in modern day Tokyo in HR for a big company. He is on the fast track to promotion, and unfortunately, this is all cut short by an angry, laid off worker. Getting killed for only doing his job? There really is no God, is there? Well, that remark is immediately put to the test when meeting a being that claims to be this said God. But nah, that thing ain't no God. That's a demon. We'll call it Being X. Stuck in an unreasonable body in an unreasonable world? Well, why so? Well, she's an underdeveloped girl, or he now is an underdeveloped girl, a war orphan, a magic user, and living in or living under a military government. Saddled with a cursed relic and forced to fight in the roughest engagements. Damn girl, that Being X really got your goose. Now that you're all caught up, let's get to it. Tanya rounds up her platoon and restates their mission. Their mission? Go save the mages acting as artillery spotters. I'm getting my P's and L's mixed up. They're blended together. Weapons? Check. Orbs? Check. Wait a tick. Sergeant Jones points out that Visha's orb is one of the old versions. Visha is shocked because she was told that it was the newest type assigned when she was in the capital. Shon's wingman shows her that the newest orbs have a sliding door exhaust port for the extra mana, and it is all around smaller. Tanya, on the other hand, has the miracle of engineering a Lenium 95 orb, something only she can use. Everyone remarks on how powerful the magic coming from it is, and it makes her look almost, well, divine. Probably shouldn't tell her that. Almost like she was the chosen messenger of the gods. Their words, not mine, so please don't tell her that. Now we get to see what the Francois mages look like. I actually kind of like this look. Got that knightly armor with what looks like armored skirts that mimic robes, and the full helm. Alright, that's pretty dope. And their guns look like the MAS 36 with the box mag loaded from the top. When I was looking up the MAS 36, I believe the box magazine was loaded from the bottom, so I'm not sure if this is a different model or I'm just way off. But that's just what it looked like to me. And this mage company is not happy. They are complaining that the military intelligence, there we go, Murphy's Law. The military intelligence they got was totally off. They were told that this part of the Imperial lines was supposed to be the thinnest. It turns out the Francois push in the area was fully surrounded by the Empire and was now getting sodomized by high explosives. So, what happened? We now pull back to the strategic map of the Rhine Theater. It looks like the Imperials made a feint of pretending to retreat in disarray, so Francois generals decided to follow up on their success and poured forces into the hole, only to run into a very thick defensive ring set up by the Empire's internal defense doctrine. What we have now is a monkey trap. If you don't know what a monkey trap is, it is I wanted to say cool, but cruel is probably more accurate. You make a box, a wooden box, probably weighted down or chained down, and a small hole, just big enough for a monkey's hand to fit into the hole. Inside the box is something the monkey likes, a fruit, a banana, an apple, something delicious. So when the monkey grabs the fruit and tries to pull its hand out of the box, well, now their hand can no longer exit the hole. And I'm not sure if it's true or not. All right, I heard that the monkeys want the fruit so much that they do not let go, and they will stay there trying to pull their hand out of the box until the hunters come and monkey soup. And this is what it kind of looks like. Or in Japanese, what do they call this? Takotsubo, where it's basically a jar that they leave at the bottom of the ocean. That's the perfect size for octopuses to hide in. And there's a rope connected to that jar, and you just pull the jar up and you have an octopus. Right? Yeah, we eat those in Japan. And well, I guess all across Asia, there are some European countries. I believe the Italians and the Greeks also eat them. I could be wrong. Do not quote me on that. And well, in this last scene, what we see is it really is shooting fish in the barrel for the Imperial gunners. Now the Francois mages are doing everything in their power to drop the Imperial mage artillery spotters and buy time for the ground forces to retreat. Is it working? Well, the third frame shows that there might be some things that they missed. Despite suppressing the Imperial mages, it does not seem that Imperial artillery is getting any less accurate. Well, that is luck or bad luck, depending on which side you're on, I guess. Now we learn about the two types of attack that the mages have at their disposal. We have optical spells and explosive spells. The latter is pretty self-explanatory. It goes boom. Optical, I'm guessing, is the laser beam attacks that we've seen so far. So, well, optical is the correct translation. I'm just not sure if that's what they meant by it. And, well, if you think about it, it's a product of optics, light. So, yeah, I guess that is accurate. Well, prescription glasses are also optics. Those aren't really lasers. Kind of wish they were. Well, you can make your own assumptions there. One Francois mage asked for permission to switch to explosive spells since optical spells aren't getting the results they want. Well, right before he gets a response, the radio operator announces that a huge magic source has been detected, and it is assumed to be Imperial mage reinforcements. So, their commander switches their mission from hunting spotters to preparing to intercept the new threats. Further information pares the signals down to only 4 incoming sources. Another mage gives us more background info that Imperial mages are a cut above other mages from contemporary militaries. Unfortunately, they cannot retreat because they need to keep supporting the retreating ground forces. And back to our girl. Tanya gets some bad news. The spotters they were going to save have been downed. Sergeant Shones remarks that Tanya seems to regret not being able to save them. Visha adds that it was because Tanya was super kind and sympathetic to the plight those spotters were in. Visha is... I love how she always sees everything through rose-colored glasses. We find out that Tanya is actually just pissed that the trip they made out there was a complete waste of time. Tanya, she puts on her cute face and her soldier attitude, telling them that while it was unfortunate that they could not save their comrades in time, they still had a job to do. Shones brings up the simple point that the job she had in mind was maybe a little above what a single platoon was cut out to do. Dual-wielding Tanya agrees with Shones' tactical analysis, but brings up a counterpoint. Intelligence says there are 2 enemy mage companies in their sector, so yeah, 4v24, those aren't good odds. But those companies are probably fatigued after pushing so far forward and spending so much energy hunting the spotters. And in order to more efficiently cover a greater area, they have split into single platoons that are spread out and out of range of covering one another. So actually, All they have to do is stomp out 6 tired platoons, one after the other. Yeah, easy peasy lemon squeezy. With her innocent peasant girl look, she puts the nail in the coffin, telling her platoon that this information was gained from the last transmission of the fallen spotters. They gave their lives to transmit this last piece of info to aid in the Empire's victory. It is now up to them to carry out the best possible plan of action and fully capitalize on their sacrifice. Jeez, girl, can you lay it on any thicker? Who's gonna say no to that? Well, no arguments from her platoon. Tanya is just glad that she was able to convince them into believing that she was a good commanding officer. Well, like on this page, I guess she can lay it on thicker. She decides to take some of the pressure off of her platoon by splitting the work in half. What a great boss. She would take on 3 platoons herself, and her other 3 subordinates could take on the other 3 platoons. See? Fair. With the mood lightened, Shones jokes that Lieutenant Degrachev wants to become an ace, and Tanya then reveals the goal of her side quest. If she manages to claim 10 more kills, she'll be rewarded with bonus pay and R&R away from the front, and she fully intends to spend that reward at a resort town eating her way through all the specialty dishes. I mean, look at that panel. I mean, that could be part of a cooking manga. Sorry, fellow soldiers, she really wants to have a luxurious lunch at a beer hall. Now, anthropomorphic cutscene here. So, there is more background information. Any mage that can rack up 50 kills gets a 2-week furlough and hazard pay. 5 kills is what makes you an ace, and 50 makes you an ace of aces. Well, on top of the memory blurring issues with using the Elenium 95 orb, it allows her to make attacks way further than normal, so a lot of her kills are actually unconfirmed. It reminds me of how sniper kills were recorded. Was it World War II? Or Vietnam? Korean War? Well, a sniper kill would not be counted unless there was an officer that also was with the sniper, because I guess they were afraid of snipers padding their kills or whatever. But yeah, so if snipers did take out an enemy, if there was no officer to count it, it wasn't counted. So there's a good chance a lot of the snipers out there have much higher kill counts than what are officially recorded. Same thing here with Tanya. But since some of them have been confirmed, Tanya has at least 41 registered kills. Or not at least, she has 41 registered kills. This is going to be important later. And since these are achievements and they are recognized as military accomplishments, there's no way she can be charged with war crimes. That's how far ahead she's thinking. She intends to use Being X's curse to shed the blood of others and to keep herself alive no matter what. Can't blame her for that. I would too. Sergeant Shones expresses his jealousy while Tanya continues to monologue. Maybe this war is winnable. First Lieutenant Schwarzkopf had managed to pull 2 more soldiers out of his thinning wallet to aid in her mission. The ability of field officers to make tactical decisions with extra options shows that the Empire still has some wiggle room with resources. Tanya has made the connection that we all have as well. The Empire here is uncomfortably similar to Germany in our timeline. Well, the dark part of German history, the early 20th century Germany. While there was little chance of them losing to any single bordering nation, A two-front war is possible, as we have seen here, but the loss of resources is that much more dire. I mean, you're wasting twice as much. One nation against the world is just not something anyone wants to be doing. Tanya announces that war needs to be enjoyed as long as it can be won. I'm not sure if I agree with that, but probably do want to win if you are in a war. Shones jokes that he thought Tanya found the most enjoyment being surrounded on all sides against impossible odds. Visha too thought the same thing, but Tanya just says that's because soldiers gotta do what they're ordered to do, and sometimes an order like that gets issued. They believe that Tanya is keeping things light to take the stress out of the situation and ease their fears. Tanya says that she prefers a safe life over what they pardon me, what they are going through now, and passes it on to Shones. He exaggeratedly agrees with her. This is a great scene here, showing that he can give a perfect salute and parade march while in flight. Apparently, this party trick requires a high level of skill that even Tanya wants to practice on the down low in her free time. This fun peace before the storm comes to an end as Tanya senses the Francois mages closing in. It is time to warmly greet the welcoming party waiting for them. Ma'am, how should we show our hospitality? Well, roll out the red carpet for them, Sergeant. Bullets and optical lasers are on us today. Beginning attack maneuvers. And what should we do about the ill-mannered tourists that do not have their passports or valid visas? We give them the boot. Tanya probably does not want to get her boots too dirty, so she sends the Francois mages a several meters wide superheated beam of plasma. Her attack causes multiple explosions to occur in its wake. So some of those might be mages caught in the spell, the others were probably their attacks, artillery, or poor pigeons in the wrong place at the wrong time. The beam connects with a hill and literally melts it. She then sweeps it across the field, making life hard on future map makers and horribly shocking the Francois troops on the ground. This is the instant PTSD beam. No one is witnessing that and going on with their day. But it's just going to get worse. The radio crackles and it is just filled with distress calls and maydays. As panic fills the Francois radio frequencies, a whole magic platoon is wiped out. And they don't know where the attack came from. Really? Did you not see that? So, they calculate it and trace the magic signature back to a source at 12,000 feet. Quick review, 6,000 feet is the maximum altitude normal mages can effectively fight at. The multiple spells required to remain alive at the low air pressure and low oxygen levels at 10,000 feet is extremely taxing. This all has to be done while pushing the magic orb to beat gravity and preparing a super long-range high-output optical spell. This is a level of military prowess that would permanently be etched into the minds of the Francois military. According to the Francois mages, only fighter planes can reach that altitude. But they have to raise their altitude in order to form a protective umbrella for the crunchies on the ground. The Francois mage commander orders them to reach 8,000 feet, even though 7,000 is their limit. So they must be above average for mages. Good on them. Well, not good enough though. We learn a new vocab word for this story on this page. The Francois mages are using NATO phonetic alphabet here to name their units. Someone calls for Charlie team to engage the three flanking Imperial mages. That would be Visha and Sergeant Shones and his wingmen. but they are countermanded and told that Bravo and Charlie teams need to focus on the enemy above them. That skill in solo play can only be done by a named, yeah, capitalized, surrounded by quotations marks. The kanji here is literally registered wizard or registered sorcerer, registered witch or whatever. The flavor text here tells us that the mage world is pretty small, so kills are usually counted at the company or even battalion level. Any individual or unit that gets 5 kills becomes an ace, and 50 makes them an ace of aces, and opposing forces officially register them as a target that needs to be prioritized. Makes sense. That's why the Francois commander tells them to ignore Visha's group. Bravo team engages Tanya while the commander tries to match her magic signature to the library. Yeah, again, capitalized and quotation marks. Library. It's probably a magical Rolodex of some sort. They haven't really explained how this works in the series, so I can't tell you how that works. They get a match in the library, and you can see the hope drain out of them, even under all that armor. 60 plus kills. Registered individual named mage, Devil of the Rhine. And pose. Psycho Tanya moment. Good day. Goodbye. The Elenium 95 orb crackles with magical energy and surrounds Tanya. She tosses up her light machine gun and shoots it, releasing all its bullets in a 2-layered halo. Moments later, the nightmare continues for the Francois army. Each round turns into a shooting star with the power of a large artillery shell. Poor Francois mages start popping like ants under a 7-year-old magnifying glass. The clouds part as the holy rain falls to cleanse the land of sinners and wash away their follies. Sorry, yeah, something came over me. Did I say anything strange? No? Alright, good. Let's continue. A few of the more powerful Francois mages manage to put up defensive fields that can hold off such a devastating attack. They then go on with typical anime antagonist dialogue. Damn the devil, we'll get you now. Today's the day we'll finally knock you out of the sky. They are met with puppy dog eyes, her head tilted to the side as if she is completely confused by their words, and then zips off with the Francois mages in pursuit. Tanya senses something. It's something she's experienced multiple times during her time in Norden. It was the magical frequency vibrations that come from when a targeting spell is cast on you. Emergency evasion! Her acrobatic moves save her from the vicious crossfire of optical and explosive spells. Did she really dodge that volley? Impossible! Devil! Monster! All of this over open comms. Tanya is sure it's just a ploy to try and break her concentration. Look at the puffed up cheeks. Universal sign of the peeved little girl. She tracks their magic signatures and she has a library too, so she probably has a Rolodex in her brain as well. She matches 8 of the mages to Francois aces that were pulled together to form an elite named company. Tanya communicates this to Command, and Command responds that Lieutenant Schwarzkopf is on the way, so there is no need for her to try and take them all out. Well, that's a big difference than our first chapter when she was told to fight them all by herself. So, dodging bullets better than a deadbeat dad dodges alimony, Tanya thanks them for their response, but says that reinforcements are appreciated. But this is her battlefield. Tanya probably doesn't want to give up any of her kills because that would endanger her chances of getting that leave. So she is going to need to play the part of both the patriot and the part of the plucky go-getter to increase her chances of getting that bag. Playing the patriot is a good tool in any world, and like any tool, it needs to be used at the right time in the right place. And she has found the best way to use it. Thus begins her spell. Alright, so here she goes in her speech. From the north or the west, anyone who dares sully the ground of the fatherland shall be expunged. That is the duty of Imperial mages. And why is she giving this speech? Well, if you remember, the Elenium 95 orb was cursed by the gods to force the wielder to praise the gods in order to release its full power. Fortunately for Tanya, heavy-handed patriotic rhetoric can also be construed as religious fervor. Not like that's ever been used in our world. Tanya regrets having to use words like that because it is pretty cringe. But these are the speeches that get promotions and win hearts. The intensity in her eyes shows her concentration on the spell and her hatred for what she has to do in order to survive in this world. Target coordinates set. Random fluctuations calculated for. Mana charging in the cores stable. A ginormous magic formula forms around her. All 4 cores of the Elenium 95 orb are running stably. She radios the command post and warns them that a thermobaric explosion is about to take place, and an alert should be sent to all friendly forces. So what is a thermobaric explosion? It has a couple names. A fuel air explosion, a vapor explosion, a dust explosion. Basically, you have some kind of fuel or particulate matter that is flammable that you disperse it in a mist over a very large area. And once it matches with the oxygen in the air, something ignites it, and it all goes off in one big boom. It is a terrible, terrible weapon, and, well, many militaries use it. I believe the Russian military uses it the most. They really love thermobaric weapons. But I actually heard vacuum bomb before. It's not really a vacuum. Well, if you are caught in the blast, it will literally suck the air out of your lungs because all that fuel needs to burn somehow. And I believe the most damaging part of it, well, besides being in the explosion itself and getting cooked from the inside, is the shock wave that comes after it. Apparently the shock wave is great enough to turn your innards into jelly. So you will find bodies that are completely intact. But if you conduct an autopsy on them, you will find all the internal organs turned into jelly. So, pretty nasty. That's what she is attempting to release on the Francois army. So, back to it. She tells them that the thermobaric explosion is about to go off. The command post acknowledges her and sends out that warning. The formula takes shape and continues to grow around her. It finally reaches its final form, almost like a biblical angel in form and ripping up the earth beneath it. Then her speech or prayer continues, telling the foolish intruders to leave. This is the Empire's sky, her homeland. Why would you set foot on the holy lands with their filthy feet? And yeah, Tanya now understands how the curse put on the Elenium 95 by the gods works now. The frames here show the vitriol she feels and the unrestrained fury she wants to release. It's like she's trapped in her own mind, unable to control or hear the words coming out of her mouth anymore. She is certain that Being X is using her mouth to spew his own praises, and that drives her further and further up the wall. She curses the gods, the politicians, the hawks that got her land in this position in the first place. Then a calm and collected voice is heard on the radio as a mushroom cloud rises over the Rhine front. This is not a nuke. Thermobaric explosions can create mushroom clouds, especially the big ones. All right, you can search YouTube. You'll find plenty of these, especially during the Vietnam War. They used a lot of big bombs, and there's some great video of it. All right. So, over the radio, it is Tanya's voice telling that the engaged Francois forces that the fight is over. If they would just lay down their weapons and surrender, they would be treated as prisoners of war under protection of the Worms Convention. This is probably this world's Geneva Convention. Unfortunately for the Francois forces, there was only one survivor, and by the looks of it, they don't look to be in any shape to be able to answer her. This is just Tanya, crossing her T's and dotting her I's. We now zoom to the Francois capital of Paris-Sui. Not Paris, not Paris, Paris-Sui, where the general staff of the Francois military are in a huge meeting to discuss a situation that happened on the Rhine front. I wonder what it could be about. The MC of the meeting announces that this council was gathered to report on what caused the loss of the 106th and 107th Expeditionary Mage Companies. Both companies were deployed to delete enemy artillery mage spotters and came into contact with an enemy mage unit sent to intercept them. The officers there are then given files that pertained to the information recorded on the magical orbs that they were able to salvage from the battlefield. Many of them cannot believe what they are reading. The 106th and 107th were both made of hand-picked mages meant to take out Imperial named mages. Weren't the best Imperial mages still up north in Norden? That can't be right. Someone's gotta be taking the piss here. It's impossible for the best to be taken out by a single Imperial mage. This report has to be BS. No way, no how. And the MC continues over the disgruntled calls and shows images and audio taken from one of the salvaged orbs. What we see and they see is a hellscape of fire and smoke with the voices of broken men filling their ears. Again, we see how unbelievable 12,000 feet is for mages. The gaudily dressed officers begin to murmur about how impossible what they are seeing and hearing is. The MC continues over the powdered wigs, telling them that from 2 months prior, battlefield rumors suggested there were Francois mages, both individuals and at the company level, that saw an Imperial mage that flew at crazy high altitudes, way out of engagement range. Intelligence units ignored the reports as mirages or slightly addled, shell-shocked soldiers. Then we hear the name Devil of the Rhine again. One general calls for the recording to stop and asks for someone to repeat that name. He learns that it was a named with no other information attached to it. They only know their mana signature. An angry general says that if they have the signature, how can they possibly not have any more record about that named mage? He is told that from past engagements, they were able to recover only 17 orbs from mages downed by the Devil of the Rhine. Since none of them were downed in close-range combat, and damage to the orbs was great, just getting the mana signature was a miracle in and of itself. Luckily for Francois Command, they have all the recordings from the 106th orbs while its mages were still living. They watch the scene where Tanya dodges all the shots from the planned ambush and can't help likening her movements to an elegant dance. They seem to understand how mage combat works, so not all of them are useless bags of air. They infer that the devil can move faster than weapons can traverse, and their ability to avoid explosions means they can sense the spell before it takes form. That sounds ridiculous because that would mean the devil can avoid all attacks that track mana signals. Someone who can also cast high-powered, accurate, long-range optical spells. They can freely fly at 12,000 feet. And if you somehow manage to close the distance, they delete you with vicious melee skills. And they can avoid attacks even before the trigger is pulled. On top of that, we then see the scene where Tanya begins her spell and her speech. It's quite a bit different than what we saw. You guys remember this? Yeah, that's what we saw. This is what they see. I mean, a little bit different. The magic detectors broke their needles as they could no longer measure the amount of mana displayed. Only stories in myths and legends matched what they were seeing now. Now we find out what Tanya was saying during her spell. And it is exactly what she thought. Save the fatherland. Grant your righteous might, so that they might smite the enemies of the homeland. Lord, save us from these heretics and strike them down. The Francois General's staff are shocked to find that their enemy was an innocent-looking child. Don't be fooled, old man. The generals stand up as icy fear seizes them. It's as though this girl is speaking straight to them through the recording. We will defend our fatherland with all of our strength. Behind us are those who we are bound to protect. It's as if she was an oracle, beseeching them to rethink their actions. Don't fall for those tears, boys. Well, too late. Some in the meeting are coming down with a serious case of religion, speaking directly to the screen like little kids at a movie theater. On the screen, we see the Francois mage's attacks glance harmlessly off Tanya's shields. You poor, misguided sheep. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Tanya concludes her spell and promises to deliver her enemies to the Promised Land. And well, it looks like transport to the Promised Land is via an orbital strike. The meeting ends with the Francois generals begging the gods to save them. It's now been 1 year since that fight over the Rhine. We are now back in Berun, the capital of the empire, where another meeting is taking place. Get used to that. There's a lot of meetings, especially in some of the later books. This is the second council meeting for deciding who to admit into the Imperial Military Academy. They are assembled to re-examine candidates that were passed over during the first council meeting. General Rudelsdorf, probably a one-star general, is leading the meeting from his super ornate chair. That can't be comfortable. That looks like a throne, not a chair. He wants to know by what yardstick Major Lergen is making his choices. I mean, no matter how they look at this candidate's file, there's nothing wrong they can find with them. In fact, they are the ideal candidate. Why were they passed over in the first screening? I wonder who they're talking about. This is someone recommended by field commanders, second in their class in officer training, loyal, law-abiding according to the investigations done by the intelligence arm and the military police. On top of that, actual combat experience? Definitely a promising officer in the future. Lergan agrees that this candidate meets and even exceeds the standards set for the Imperial Military Academy. This says academy, I think this is actually university. The Imperial Military University is probably correct. Lergan firmly states that aerial mage, First Lieutenant Tanya Degrachev, hey, she got promoted. Tanya should not be allowed to enter the academy or the university, no matter what. And that concludes Chapter 5.